I'm going to tie Schroeder's parachute hopper, and I'm starting off with a size 10 hopper hook in the vise. I'm going to tie this in a green, although a variety of colors work, and the thread that I'm going to use is a 70 olive. So I'll start this behind the eye of the hook, take enough wraps to lock it in, and then remove the tag. The post for this is going to be a white calf body hair, so I'll take a section of hair off the hide and take a moment to clean out any of those really short pieces or any of that under fur, and then I'll put it in a stacker. I'll give it a couple of taps, get the tips aligned, and remove it, and then I'll hold this out so that it's about maybe half a hook shank in length or so, and I'll measure it, set it on top of the hook shank, take a couple of real hard turns on top of one another to hold it in place, and then I like to come back and wrap some of that material down the hook shank, and I do that so that it provides a little bit of a base for my dubbing, and the taper then isn't made of all dubbing, but it has some of that natural material underneath it. I'll bring my thread back up, I'll hold the clump of calf hair up, and I'm going to start to take wraps underneath at an angle so it creates that thread dam there and helps hold that post upright. Then I'll take my wraps around. I'll start with maybe 4 or 5 wraps, and then I'll come back and anchor it and then work my way up a little bit higher, anchor it until I get the right height for my post. And I'll also use this thread to torque that post in position, so pulling back so it's at that 90-degree angle and right on top. Bring my thread back down. If you catch any flyers, snip those. This has a rib to it. I'm going to use a brown floss. I'll take one strand of the 4-strand spool. I always like to wet the end so the fibers slick together and they're a little easier to work with. And I'll tie that down to about the barb and the hook or so. Then I can dub in my body, a variety of dubbing materials. I'm going to use a synthetic and keeping in the green tone. And I'll dub in a taper. And I'm going to dub right to the post, create a little platform there for my wing to sit on so it rides parallel with the hook shank. If you leave a gap in, it's going to angle up. I'm going to take one more pinch to smooth everything out. And then I'll leave my thread behind the post, and then I can wrap my floss up through. And again, I like to wet the floss as I do it so that it stays together. And then I'll tie that off behind the post. And then I can remove that. Now the wing for this is going to be turkey and some preparation. So again, keeping with the green, I've got a green turkey. A lot of different ways that you can get these fibers rigid. You can use head cement or anything that you want to brush on. I like to use hairspray, so I've got just a little travel can of hairspray, and I spray the feather, let it dry, and then it's good to go. So there's the more pliable end, which is the tip of the feather, and then this more rigid is the part that is closest to the stem. That's the end that I'm going to round off, put a little detail in for the wing. So using a curved scissors, just putting a rounded edge in there. And then I'm going to hold this against the hook shank, and I want it to go to the back. And I'll take a moment to make a straight cut right at the parachute so that I've got the right length. Now my thread's advanced back, but I'm still going to push this wing all the way to the post. So again, it rides relatively flat on the back. Take some wraps and then work my way back up to the post. It'll still pop up a little bit, but the more dubbing and greater base you provide there, the flatter it's going to lay. So now for the legs, I'm going to use pheasant tail, and these can be tricky at times to tie. You want to knot them in the middle. And I've pre-assembled a couple, but I'll show you the technique that I use. So I pull it off at a 90-degree angle so that the tips align, and I leave these rough fibers on. I put a slight twist into it, and then I'll bend it around. It makes it a little easier with that twist in for it to loop. Then I'll take my hackle pliers and I'll reach through the loop that I made on the side facing me, and I'll grab them. So again, put your hackle pliers through the loop and then just pull that through and then back, and it'll knot those for you. Again, probably warrants a demonstration unto itself, but I make a loop, put my hackle pliers through it, and then pull it out. So I'll take that, I'll measure it against the hook shank. Again, I want it to go just short of the wing, maybe the same length. I'll hold it at an angle, and I want to make sure that that knot is facing that leg down. After you have a couple of wraps in, you can adjust it. And then I'll do the same thing to the other side. Again, I pre-knotted a couple of legs here, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. So hold it against, take my wraps, and then once they're in place, I'll come back and trim them up. And then I'll also clip the back part of the leg so they're even. Now I'm going to take my hackle, and I'm going to use a grizzly hackle, and although this is a size 10 hackle, I usually undersize these by at least at least one size, so this might be better suited for a size 12 or even 14. I'm going to hold it to the front, and I'm going to tie it in front of the post. Then I'm going to hold it straight up, and I'm going to wrap that into the post and leave it behind. You can tie your hackle in when you tie in your post, but I don't want to compete with this as I tie the rest of it in, so I save it to this step. Now I can bring my dubbing back in to cover up any of my tie-in points. So any place I see thread, and I'll leave this just behind the eye. So tie in, try to make this as smooth as possible so it helps to take some angles. And maybe one more pinch to smooth it out. And again, leave enough space behind the eye. And now I can work my hackle around. Before I lose it, I'm going to attach my hackle pliers. And then I'm going to hold it in front of the eye, and I'm going to cut under with my thread. Try to do that 2 times. And then I should be able to remove my hackle pliers. Hold everything back. And then whip finish. And a neat trick that I learned is to put the bobbin on one of the knobs of your vise, so you've got some room, or so that you have 2 hands to use to whip finish. One to hold back the material, and then if you've caught any of these flyers, take a moment to clean them up. Dab a head cement if you'd like. And that is Schroeder's parachute hopper.